So the Bible says that Jesus knocking on the door. Have you ever seen that picture of Jesus knocking on the door? So I saved my old barn doors. And this is where I was. And every time I had an obstacle, when I was getting drunk, when I was getting stoned, and like Sharon was telling me about with my life, it wasn't just physical. It was the anger I had. It always had to prove that I was bad. It always had to fight. It always had to lie. It always had to steal. It was also the emotional things. But every time in 31 years I would do something, I'd build this brick up. I'd do drugs one day. I'd get drunk. I'd be a bad father. I'd be a bad husband. And I actually had these walls. So I found myself, this is my walls of my life. This is where I was. And I wanted to show you exactly where I was and what God did in my life. And some of you guys are still building walls up. And the sad part about that is Jesus knocking on your door. And some of you have felt it. And I don't talk about a big mountaintop thing. You don't have to go, meditate in the mountaintop. You don't have to cross the Alps. You don't have to go down a Shenandoah Highway or whatever. It's just a personal relationship between you and God. And I found myself in this room, and I had all these walls out. And this is my room. This is my dark valley that I had. And for 31 years, I built up. I was totally addicted to drugs, to alcohol, and pornography. All my life. I had all this room. And the sad part about this little room is you noticed I was all alone in it. And Sharon was on the back door. That's why the Bible doesn't talk about it, but if there's a front door and Jesus is trying to get in because your life is screwed up, there's a back door and you're leaving your family out of it. But the good news is, and Jesus kept knocking on my door, and I kept going, "Oh, I don't need you." But then one day, I was out in the garage, and a man named Jerry Block told me about God. I said, "I know about God. Let me talk about Jesus." I know about Jesus. I knew it all. And most of you guys do too. But it's more than that. It's one day I had accepted. And really understand, maybe God had a plan in my life. What the good news is, I let Jesus in my life. But when I opened the door to let him in, it also let Sharon in too, and my kids. And they came in my life. And when I opened the door to let that darkness, that light came in my house, came in my little room, and it revealed to me what I was doing wrong. It was all the amount of drugs I was doing. It was all the drinking I was doing. And that's just the physical stuff, but I was not letting Sharon in my life. I didn't want her in that part of my biker lifestyle. I didn't want her in that part of my drugs, my criminal activities. I didn't want her a part of that. But when I let Christ in my life, everything was different. I'm thinking, what do I do with that? And I looked at this mirror going, and I had a big old black beard back then. And I'm thinking, what do I do? I've only known how to be a criminal all my life. How can I be any different? And God told me that if I start acting different, he's going to start working in my life. He's going to allow me to be a different person, to be the husband Sharon needed. And to be the role model my kids need. And now today, June, we celebrate 40 years of marriage. And I wouldn't be alive today. You know that. I would not be alive. My main ambition was not to stay in Florida. It was to go to California. And I know some of you guys don't want to know who I was going to join, but it was to be a 1%er. As you can see, I was on that road. And it wasn't to stay married. It wasn't to stay raising my family. It wasn't to be helping you guys. I wanted to be your enemy. But God had a different plan. And it was a much stronger plan than that. It was incredible. That's all I ever thought about. Every tattoo I got, every time I worked out in the gym, I thought about joining that club. So when I came out of that room, and Jesus said that I needed to start thinking different, and I didn't know anything different. All I knew is how to use people and steal and stuff. And I started reading the Bible. It was confusing to me. So someone said, "Well, just do what Jesus did. That'd be okay." I said, "I can do that." I didn't know how he would act in this situation, so I knew when I was getting ready to steal something at work, I thought, well, would Jesus do that? Probably not. So I didn't do it. I didn't know that, when you guys bought the GMS, which is General Motors Sealer, it cost you $25 for a tube, and if I used that much, I took the rest at home. I didn't know it was stealing. I didn't know if the car had keys in it, I wasn't supposed to take it. I didn't even know that stuff. I didn't know how to think like a normal person. I sure didn't know how to think like a husband and and the Father. And I'm serious. I didn't know those things were wrong, and God had to reveal that stuff to me. And I had to stop myself so many times that, okay, if someone cuts me off, I'm not supposed to drag him on the car and beat him up anymore. It's just something I'm not supposed to do. And I used to have my fat bob, with the leather flap, and I had ball bearings in there and roofing nails. And you're not supposed to do that. Okay, I didn't do that anymore. And I had to learn all that stuff. And then I was just so selfish that I wouldn't want to, every one of you guys, I would not want to help. And God said, when you start helping people, because it says that love covers a multitude of sins. And every time that I started walking with the Lord, and I realized, because I want to let you know, today has been a vision that I've had since I was 10 years old. When I was in a place called La Celeste Shrine in Attleboro in Rhode Island, and it was all the Catholic Stations of the Cross, and they would do the blessing of the bikes, and I was in the parking lot, and I remember 10 years old, I remember seeing the Hells Angels, I remember seeing the Huns, and the Devil's Disciples, and I remember seeing these guys, man, it must have been 1,000 guys, and I was running around going, wow, look at these guys. One day maybe I'll look like them, and which I did. But I remember thinking, when the priest came up there, you could hear a pin drop, and I went, wow, that's the guy with the power. And today, God showed me that. That if I start listening to him, he's going to give me that power that I need. And I can be the husband Sharon needs, and the father my kids need. And now my daughter's teaching biology in a high school. My son is the program director at one of the Victory Casino ship. He's just setting up his second shift over there, doing what he does with his DJ and stuff. And I claim, because 29 years ago I promised my family I wouldn't do drugs or alcohol, and I kept that promise. And God blessed me for that. But I didn't know how to act. When someone needs help, I never knew how to help them. I didn't know how to help myself, never mind my family. So when I started listening to God, and I started listening to Sharon, and they started helping me be what I needed to be, my life started changing. And I want to tell you what, if you're giving God 20% and expect 100% back, it ain't going to work. And you can't give him 100%. I know some of you guys were at 99.5 ain't enough, but it's impossible until you get to the gates of heaven. But, we can at least try every day. And I know most